Tyson called and said she would be a little late. Scales will not be here, so we're gonna go ahead and start the meeting. So, like to begin this meeting as we do all of our meetings with the word of prayer. Nothing we would have here would be available, and the opportunities would not exist without our Lord and Savior. And we have a pastor who understands that. Mr. Jolly, would you lead us in the word of prayer?
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we come with our heads bowed in humble submission to the totality of thy will, realizing and recognizing that you are sovereign God. We come as we begin this pre-commission session. We ask for discretion, direction, and determination to do those things that are best for the citizens of Jefferson County. We pray for each commission and every person that's present in this room. Guide us and hide us and hold us and keep us in your perpetual care. I ask in the name of him who died for us, but did not stay dead. It is in the name of Christ that I pray, and all believers said amen.
Amen. Thank you. Commissioner Hammonds, you got several things, and let's go first.
I did.
Here we go.
All right, I forgot the cheat sheet. Don't have it. Yeah.
Here. Oh, it's cheap.
And you know what? I'll pull it up here. Cheat sheet.
Tell them they keep the print smaller on this book.
I'm going to kind of go a little bit backwards, go ahead and do the community grant, if that's okay. I have a community grant with the Red Birmingham Humane Society, and appreciate Commissioner Knight joining me in that for $5,000.
You know, I add to that too.
Another
2,500.
2,500.
Okay, let's put scales down.
I thought it was 5.
5, 10. Move down.
That's second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please, aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We have a number of projects in economic development on today. The first project we will do, kind of do it out of order a little bit, is Southern Research, and we have Josh Carpenter here, who is the CEO. Southern Research is doing an expansion on their current campus and supporting the genomics and diagnostics that UAB is doing, and has been a great partner with UAB. Dr. Watts has also sent a letter of support on behalf of Southern Research. Josh has given us a presentation before. I think he's over the folks that got mad at him for tearing down the castle, I think. And but that's where some of this development will be happening. And so, Josh, have I missed anything? The request is for $7.5 million. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I'll just say two things quickly. First of all, I'll be brief since y'all heard about this project before. We had one-pagers as refreshers for those of you who weren't around. But about a month and a half ago, my colleague Monica Mason and I presented this project. Today, we also wanted to bring in Tom Brady. Tom is the Senior Vice President at UAB for advancement, but also the Chief of Staff to President Ray Watts. And I think the relationship between Southern Research and UAB is incredibly important, but not always well understood. Dr. Watts serves as the chair of our board, and the goal really is for Southern Research to play a translational bridge for economic development from the basic science research that's done at UAB. This project will create about 150 jobs and is projected to create about $103 million in annual economic impact in Jefferson County. So I'll leave these one-pagers with you, Cal, and Tom, I'd like you to come up and say a few words, and we're here to answer any questions y'all may have.
Thank you, Josh. On behalf
behalf of Dr. Watts, I want to thank you for letting me be here and joining you today. This is an exciting time for UAB, for Birmingham, for Jefferson County. As you mentioned, Commissioner Evans, we've invested a lot over the last 5 years. We've invested about $800 million in new facilities and renovations at UAB. We are excited about that. We are excited about the partnership with Southern Research. We plan on investing another $500 million over the next 5 years. One of our top priorities is commercializations, taking some of the basic findings we find at UAB, moving those to be commercialized, to ultimately create new jobs, spin-off companies. We're very excited about that. This modernization plan of SR, if you've been to Southern Research, you know modernization, it needs a little bit of that. So we are grateful for your consideration, but just wanted to share on behalf of Dr. Watts that this is a top priority for us, for our scientists, for the folks at UAB. We also think that this can help propel both UAB and Southern Research to be a leader in biotech and life sciences in the Southeast and really in the country, so we're excited about that. We appreciate your consideration of this $7.5 million gift.
It's also, the state has also contributed $45 million, and you already have that in the bank, right?
Correct.
And so which is the same that they did with the genomics at UAB. The addition of the jobs and wet lab space, and I know we've talked about this before, where this gives potential the potential expansion of bringing big pharma in to help support manufacturing, and then we've also talked with friends across the pond to in Ireland that are interested in coming and participating as well. So big things to come. Are there any questions for the folks, Josh or Tom?
I move ahead.
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
Clinton Castle opposition?
Thank you for being
One thing that I would like to say, Josh, well, is we can give you this money. We're investing this money in you.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Sir.
We're looking for this $130 million at the bottom of it. If not, it would just be a gift.
Absolutely.
And it's just a gift. We're investing in the future of Jefferson County. And that's the reason that we're making that. You're creating jobs. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're creating an environment in Jefferson County for you to be successful. You raise that tax base, you raise that quality of life that we're looking for, and we're pleased and happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're honored by the investment. We'll make good of it.
No flags got like this.
First things first.
She was on the Clinton opposition.
All right, thank you for that. Next is Liberty Park expansion called the Bread. Hey, Jeff. We introduced Jeff Downs, who's the city manager for the city of Vestavia Hills, and Ashley Curry, who's the mayor, and then Whit Colvin, who is the attorney of record for this development. We've had already a presentation on the Bray. The only reason for the county to consider it is because it is master development. It is not only considering retail, but multifamily as well as hotel, and more importantly, it's also retention of a very large corporate partner, not only for the city of Vestavia, the county and the state, but an international company in Medical Properties Trust that is has because of the development, because of the infrastructure that hopefully we'll invest in, they will stay. They will build a brand new facility that will bring property tax revenue without incentive. So this would be our incentive to go through that. The request is for $3 million over a 2-year period, and that investment will help build out the infrastructure. There are clawbacks within if the developer does not hit certain marks, certain percentages on retail and multifamily or hotel. All the above. The if there are not percentages met, then that money will be refunded.
This has got to include retail.
This is all inclusive of the master development. This will just facilitate the infrastructure.
What's the population of this state?
39,000, just above 39,000.
Jeff, if I missed anything?
No, I think you hit the point. Again, we want to send from West Davie Hills a great thank you for your consideration. Mayor Curry, our attorney Whit Colvin, myself as city manager were here. We've always partnered very well with Jefferson County. This is the last 700 acres of undeveloped land in West Davie Hills. It's our last chance to do it right. And this mixed-use development, this master plan development would not happen if it weren't for a public-private partnership, particularly on the infrastructure side. Building the road network, connecting with Sacred Hollow Road through the undeveloped portions of Liberty Park. The city, as a part of the incentive, is contributing $20 million. We're asking for this $3 million over 2 years from the county to assist us in filling this feasibility gap and making this project a reality. At the end of the day, as Steve said, you'll see Medical Properties Trust global headquarters. You'll see 102,000 square feet of retail. You'll see a full service hospitality option and multiple other benefits which drive those numbers.
Move it.
All right.
So,
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I think the one thing that I would like to add to that is that during the presentation, Jeff also gave that there was a 5-year return on investment. Once it's built out, 5-year return, we can't ask for anything better than that.
They were here when I gave you my talk to Southern Research. That goes for everyone. Thank you for
so
your confidence.
who is this project?
Thank you for
It's
your
gonna,
ability to invest. The confidence that you have in your municipality and in Jefferson County. We're proud to be partners with you. I'm Charles Sheila.
When will this project be finished?
the town center portion of it, the commercial section of it, would be finished within 5 to 10 years. The entire development, 10 to 15 years.
Long term.
Yeah.
Good.
If y'all will be coming back for some more money?
This is our last step.
Just say no. That's a long.
Thank you for being here. All right.
Thank you.
Mayor, thanks for coming and bringing Whit with you.
So this is the mayor right here.
Yeah.
That is the mayor.
Oh, okay.
Yes. We're glad you got some billable hours.
Exactly, thank you.
So this
Thank
is-
I'm Jeff Townsend, city manager. Good to see you. Thanks. Thank you.
All right, next we have Kratos. Kratos is officially Project Blazer. Folks in here, David Umber has been the attorney for Kratos. He's with Maynard Cooper, and Tim Ferguson is also here with Kratos. And I had the great pleasure at the air show to meet the senior vice president, David Goodwin, and had a great conversation about the future of not only Kratos, but maybe what we could do in the future. So Kratos is formerly Southern Research's aerospace division, where they focus on hypersonics and optics. I'll leave it in optics, all right? They are planning on growing there over a 5-year period with 76 high-paying jobs, which I believe the average wage is $92,000, which will probably require, I'm assuming, some expansion of the current facility. They are here after the IDB granted statutory abatements last week. We're doing here to do our job incentive for their not only the number of jobs, but also a $26.6 million capital investment. David, have I left anything out?
No, I think you got it. In addition, so as Commissioner Evans mentioned, the Industrial Development Board has done some abatements for this project. The county's doing this wage credit. The city is also going to do that, and the state has incentivized this project. It's a very exciting project for not only Jefferson County, but the state, mainly because of the industry they're in and the emphasis the state and county are trying to put on the aerospace engineering, aerospace industry. And so this is an exciting project that, frankly, I didn't know it really existed in Birmingham. It was part of Southern Research's engineering division that they sold off to Kratos a couple of months ago. And so as part of Kratos, which is an international company acquiring this, they've got growth plans. And so we're hoping they do as much of that growth here in Jefferson County as possible.
And I should mention, as a part of the project process, could easily move to Huntsville. There's a footprint in Huntsville, also in Oklahoma.
Yeah, they've got 100 jobs right now in Huntsville and facilities in Oklahoma that do very similar type stuff. And so
the importance of keeping them here with the city of Birmingham is going outside the normal bounds of what they normally do and giving a job incentive as well. So very exciting.
I move the project.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
The same work at Bob Dixon, they similar to the work that we do?
No. No, this is their biggest clients are the U.S. Navy and NASA.
Oh.
And so this is very technically, lots of aerospace engineers with master's doctorates, and dealing with hypersonics, which is evidently the wave of the future with in aerospace and aviation. And so it's a lot more technical than what Bob does.
a lot of security clearance stuff that
It was
we
top
can't
secret
see when
facility
we
for-
go out there. So
Good deal. Thank you.
thank
I appreciate it.
you.
We'll see you Thursday. All right. The next one is Pack Health. We have Alex Patrick here with BBA and Trevor Hamilton with Ernst & Young. EY better? I'm sorry, just EY. Okay, that's right. And we got some high-end folks. They'll be here for the next one. So Pack Health was a company that was grown organically, coming out of the UAB with Mazi. I'm going to forget Mazi's last name. Rasulia. Easy for you to say. Mazi, yes. And Sanjay Singh, and as one of the investors, and has grown it to be a very successful.
So, but I'll be over there, big bit back and forth, so just come.
Whoever's on, please mute. Either that or speak up so we can understand.
It was Lennox, I muted her.
There you go. Pack Health has recently been acquired and continuing to grow. And I'll let you kind of explain, or Alex, a little bit more of how Pack Health does besides the telehealth side.
Yeah, we're a digital health coaching company, recently acquired by Quest Diagnostics in February. Quest is looking to expand our current office space. We occupy the old Tillman Levinson building. I guess y'all are probably familiar with that. We're looking to expand that office space to be able to accommodate the growth that we have. We have some ambitious growth goals here locally. Looking to hire at least 200 employees to be in that office that will be our frontline workers, which are our health coaches, which help people who have chronic conditions better manage their health. Quest is looking to establish kind of a center of excellence here locally in Birmingham. They have a smaller footprint throughout the state, and this would be a large investment for them, capital improvements, but also the growth of employees here locally.
And the 120 jobs over 3 years with an average wage of about $52,000 a year.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
I move the project.
Second. All in favor, please say aye. Thank you. All right. See you guys later.
You took them out of order.
No, I did them out of order, yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking about the other one, I meant to go talk about.
No, we're getting to that. Don't go anywhere. We're getting to that. All right. That number 4. Now we're going to it. So this one is with BBA and Supplier Scale. Emily Jerkenthal and Christy Hollingsworth are here from BBA to speak to it. Supplier Scale was originally an idea that came out of Prosper, Birmingham. And the idea was, initially with Prosper, it was business advisory services, which would help the initial focus was to help Black and women-owned businesses, to help them scale appropriately, whether it was technology adoption, legal help, accounting help, or just process oriented. So there was through that, and Prosper funded the first one, and BBA is running it. That they go through a cohort with the class for 14 weeks. That will help them not only with making their companies better, but also giving them access to different opportunities with different companies that they can supply to or be a part of. BBA took that on and said, well, we'll be happy to do it. However, we're not going to limit it, and it's available to most folks with a focus on Black-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. It was a great pleasure to see the graduation last Thursday. We're gonna say it's Thursday, one of those days last week. And to see the folks that came out and how excited they were and how well their businesses were doing in a short period of time and how their growth has become even greater. So, Emily, have I missed anything, or what would you like to add to it?
Sure, I just briefly hit on, thank you, Commissioner Ammons, and before diving into that, I would like to thank you all for your approval of those 2 economic development projects that just passed. The BBA, we really appreciate your commitment to job creation, and we're excited. This program that Commissioner Ammons has introduced is really another way for us to create really great jobs in Jefferson County, and so pleased to do that. As Commissioner Ammons mentioned, we just finished up one of our cohorts, and we're continuing to work with those companies to get them specialized services, which will fall under this as well. We had a really high graduation rate, 95%, and the person who dropped out because they had a nice acquisition of the company. So good problem to have. We worked with a national partner, Enterprise, who is excellent at delivering curriculum, and we had an instructor who also owns a business locally walk them through the program. So we're really pleased. 95% of our participants were Black-owned businesses, and about half were women-owned businesses. So it's really important to us to make that a priority. And as we go into the next 12 months, we're launching another cohort, Team Up, this next week that's focused on growing great cultures and teams. That's a really critical thing as a company gets started to grow. And so many more things planned this next year. And Commissioner Ammons is our chair of the program with Prosper and BBA. And so I just want to thank you all for your support.
This will help fund the next few cohorts. So this is not just a one-time thing. It will be over a number of cohorts for the future. The ask is the $750,000, and this is a great program, a great process.
What kind of businesses are coming out?
Yeah, so it's a variety of businesses. The cohort we just wrapped up was a focus on professional services businesses, so they're a little bit smaller. And so we had anywhere from, a local tax technology company that just received IRS certification. It was in BBJ this week. If you go in BBJ, you will see, I can send you all several links, but many of the companies are already being highlighted for recent wins. Local restaurants that are looking to franchise and expand their presence. And so a variety. And this next cohort, we're serving companies that are a little bit larger. And so those may look like Starts Innovation Depot, but we'll continue to work with companies too that are small manufacturers. So it's really a variety. We vet them based on their commitment and then their willingness to scale and grow their company. And so we really have a great mix of industries.
And the one that you would recognize is Naughty But Nice California.
Yes.
That worked with the World Games. If if you had popcorn at the World Games, most likely theirs, and it's some good
It's very
stuff.
good. I
They
recommend
are-
meet him next. It's very
Yeah,
good.
they'd already been around for a couple of years, but this really kind of helped them achieve the next level. And some of the things that we heard early on was that, within COVID, PPP loans weren't available because they didn't have everything in place where they should have had it. Their documentation paperwork wasn't there, so it was. This will help them get there and help them achieve where they can have access to capital and other things that are.
I second it, and I was sure to talk about that other copy.
All right, I have motion and second. All in favor, please aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. The next one, I want to call on Phil Phillips to give an update on Hallmark. You may have seen it in the BBJ this week, but I get him to give an update on where things are.
Some good news, as you know, the county and the city of Warrior went in jointly and purchased the Hallmark farms, and right during COVID, kind of slowed the economy down a little bit, so we had a good time to revamp the farm and get it ready to market. We got a hit last week. We've been working with Marshall Steakhouse and RV Parks in January, and they made their official announcement last week that they're going to do a $15 million steakhouse and nice RV resort. The steakhouse currently in Mississippi has been voted by the Cattlemen's Association 3 of the last 4 years the #1 steak in Mississippi. It also, they serve between 3,500, believe it or not, from Thursday through Sunday, 3,500 to 4,000 people per day. You can check them out on I-22 going into Memphis and Holly Springs, Mississippi, if you want to check it out in good time. But they're starting the process of purchasing 95 acres on the east side of the interstate, not the mansion side. So it will work well with future development on the west side. So we're looking forward and excited about that project. And just, if you have any questions, I'll be available.
And this was the land that we thought we would sell last from and never at all. So this was a great win for the county and especially North Jersey.
But it fits perfectly for what they're willing to do because
Do
of
we
the
have to,
layout.
we have to get them incentives?
So they would qualify. All right, thank you. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, as y'all know, we've been working with Moody's and Fitch and S&P, Theo, Angela, Travis, for weeks now on our ratings. And in doing so, I worked with Odell to put together some numbers off the state's website, and I just wanted to point this out after this. In 2019, Jefferson County, based on what y'all have done, Commission as a whole, was number 5 in the state in investments, number 4 in jobs created. 2020, you were number 4 in investments, number 1 in the state in jobs created. 2021, number 2 in investments, and number 1 in jobs created. And I'm sure 22 is going to be probably put you at the top too. So phenomenal job what y'all have done and working to create good jobs for Jefferson County. It's amazing.
And is there any way you can break it down and tell us what type of job?
I can't, on the
We'll
website,
get that,
I can't.
BBA, can pull that together. I'll just like I said, that is my report.
All right, let's go back to our
That ends Christmas in August.
we have a pre-commission, Public Works, Community Services, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee. You have environmental services, you have gardening, it's an oversight support, bill amendment number 3. Any questions? All in favor say aye. We have encroachment agreement with Doug Edelman with no money. Have a move. All in favor? Then we have Duke's root control. It's a root control area, and it's the amount requested there is $1,495.
Which one, John?
Last 3? Okay. Second. A motion second, all in favor
We have 4 items this morning. First item is for the North Smithfield Storm Shelter number 2. It's a revocable license agreement between,
Let's get up, didn't it,
The first item is for the North Smithfield Storm Shelter number 2 with the North Smithfield Manor Greenleaf Heights Community, revocable license agreement between the Civic League and Jefferson County for the oversight of the facility. Number 2 is a revoking the storm shelter license agreement with the North Smithfield Manor Greenleaf Fire Station. Their attorney has stated that they don't have the authority to oversee the facility. Number 3 is amendment number 3 with the Birmingham Urban League for the ERAP 1 program. This is to move $6,105,964 to BUL for the oversight of the remaining ERAP funds. $1,364,464 is coming from neighborhood housing services, and the remaining is $4,741,500 from the state voluntary reallocation funds. The funds that are being transferred from NHSB has to be spent by the end of next month, and the state voluntary relocation funds have to be spent by December 29th, 22. Finally is Thomas Gloria lien release. This lady has paid off in full her mortgage, and basically we just released it.
All right, number 1, congratulations on this, Gloria, for doing that, making that mortgage. Number 2, can we spend this money before
We will.
the deadline?
That's been a very high rate.
I'm like, oh yeah. All right, and North Smithfield, I know that that's been kind of a controversy. So is the fire department is no longer managed it, and this community league is going to manage it?
That's right. And they're also overseeing storm shelter number 1, so they have experience to do that as well.
Okay. And we're subsidizing them in some way for?
Yes, sir. Basically, we're reimbursing them for their liability insurance, and then we're doing the major maintenance and the insurance on this.
Okay, any other questions? Get a motion to move item 1 through 4.
Second.
And first and second, all in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
We have Monique Greer with Youth Extension. Monique, are you on? Okay, we have a contract to provide training and certification for the juvenile officers over in Youth Extension.
I'll second. This is a good program because it teaches our officers what to do and what to watch for in case somebody who has some issues before it gets too far gone. So this is a good thing.
First and second, all in favor, say aye.
No,
This will have one community grant,
next second.
first and second, all in favor, say aye.
Okay, infrastructure committee. Heather?
Yes, sir.
Heather? As you do this, as you go through these, you go to the city, you have your representative here, and you get an update on those roads and what we're about to do out there, so he can update the city council. We want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I know the mayor yesterday. Okay.
What we doing is good.
They're doing their stage 2 paving.
Did you want me to do that first or go?
No, well, you can. What we make.
So, the Group 2 paving includes Newtown Road, Virginia Drive, and Pleasant Grove Road, and we had several projects that had to go in advance of those. It was pipe replacements and things that we do to prep the roads. think there might have been a little confusion that that was intended to be the work. It's not. So the contractor is preparing to mobilize in and to begin that. That's gonna involve milling, subgrade stabilization work, and then the actual paving. And then we also have the grant that was passed by the city council or the intergovernmental agreement to do the Hueytown section of Virginia Drive. So that'll be coordinated with the contractor's work as well.
So, do you have any questions?
No, sir. Not familiar.
So those are county roads except for the portion of Virginia.
Yes.
The city's paying for.
There are 3 roads. Scheduled to be paid, and what we did that caused so much controversy is they went in and repaired the base that was failing on some of those roads.
And we have pipe replacement, yes.
And you had a pipe replacement. And as they did that in anticipation of getting the road paved and being smooth, there was some controversy that the Jefferson County was sorry in their road work. And a little communication will go a long way in saying, no, that's not what they're doing. They're preparing this to make it better than it's ever been. That worked out a lot better.
How many approvals do we have in Hueytown?
I couldn't get you an exact count, but
It's a lot.
3.
3, 4?
Yeah.
I would have to pull the agreement.
You could get with them and do an update on district going to
For the agenda items, number 1 is.
I'll move 1 through 11.
Second.
All in favor? I was taken aback there a minute. I was relishing that moment for a minute. All right, we have the minutes from the commission meeting on July 28th. And everyone read those and moving through the agenda. Thank you very much. Sheriff has a cardiac solution purchasing agreement for training device 79,980. Been moved. Second. All in favor say aye. We have ARPA, Fitch and Associates. This is a big one. We have, can we do that at the end? You want to do it at the end of the entire meeting or? Okay, that'd be fine. Guys, Fitch, y'all, hang tight.
Yeah, I don't wanna do the last one.
To be informed, Congressman Clear, that agenda modifies the agreement that y'all did with Fitch for doing the study, because it's the correct federal language in, so that when we pay for the study, it's all we're straight up.
Need a
This
motion.
is the
Second.
Y'all go back. You're not time yet.
Not time yet?
Not
All
time
right,
yet.
sounds good.
All right, have a motion second, all in favor say aye. Joe,
Finance.
while you do that, we'll go.
I'll go get one when they start.
You may get one?
No. Just
Good morning, Commissioners. Item number 1, 2, and 3 are our normal encumbrance report, purchasing agenda report, and purchasing session report. Item number 4 is the unusual demand report.
I'll move 1 through 7.
Okay.
I have a motion 1 through 7, all in favor, please, a second. Do I have a second?
I say so.
Okay, I'm sorry. All in favor, please say aye.
Item number 8 is the Terminex Pest Control Amendment, and this amendment reflects adjusted prices that are lower. The end date, Melly, if we can do a pen and ink, should be 9/30/2022. It removes the termite services. This gets us to the end of the fiscal year, and we are releasing a new bid this Friday. And we work with the departments to
Get rid of some pests. Do I have a motion? Motion second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Item number 9 is our Kavanaugh McDonough OPIB evaluation. It gives us the actuarial services to evaluate the liability for our post-employment benefits for audit purposes.
Did we hire them last year?
It's the same contract, it's a renewal.
Do we have to do this every year? I mean, once it established, does it change?
Yes, we update the liability every year for the audit purposes.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Item number 10 is our engineering is also required for audit. It's a evaluation of our landfill liability.
Move. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Okay, under our budget management,
We got two packets.
oh, I'm sorry.
Do I have a motion? Move the packets. All in favor, please say aye.
Budget management office, we have our multiple staff development, our individual staff development,
Move it.
and information items.
All in favor, please say aye. Board of Registrar Terry is out with, one of his, gonna be at school, but we have item one in the precinct split. Hoover, do you have any questions?
Move on.
Move on. I have a motion for items 1 and 2. Do I have a second? So we'll all in favor, please say aye. Aye. General Services, Ms. Wilkin, are you on?
Yes, Commissioners, good morning. General Services has 2 items this morning on the agenda. One is AMPAR, One Stop Environmental, for asbestos abatement at the Salvation Army building. And the second contract is for the demolition of the Salvation Army building.
Yeah.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Human Resources, Mr. Martin, take that. Martin.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Oh, there you are.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. This is Lauren Warren. First item on the agenda is a contract for executive search services with Slavin Management Consultants to conduct a nationwide search for the Chief Human Resources Officer position.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Derek Williams. I'm going to address items number 2 through 8. Items number 2 through 8 are the renewals of the county's benefit contracts. Item number 2 is to extend the current contract with MetLife for prepaid legal. Item number 3 is to extend the current contract with MetLife for disability insurance. Item number 4 is to extend the AFLAC contract for supplemental insurance. Item number 5 is to extend the Delta dental insurance contract. Item number 6 is to extend the contract with Blue Cross to administer the health plan. Item number 7 is to agree to the agreement for the county health plan with Blue Cross. And item number 8 is to extend the contract with Behavioral Health Systems for the mental health, substance abuse care, and employee assistance program.
All right, appreciate it. Let me ask you this, on the number 5, the Delta dental insurance, you got a decrease rate of 6%. Will that be losing any services or decreasing any services?
No, it's not. It's going to maintain the exact same contract. We just said we negotiate a better rate.
Okay. And the increase in MetLife on the disability insurance and also the increase in Blue Cross health plan, is that going to increase the premiums, I'm sure?
I'm going to ask Mercy O'Byrne to come in and address those specific questions for you. Mercy, can you come off mute and address those questions?
Yes, the LTD long-term disability, the rates are going to increase. This is 100% employee paid. On the health plan, that is a commission decision on whether the premium rate increase or not.
Okay, on the disability insurance, will the benefits increase or just the price that is going to increase 20%?
Just the price is going to increase 20%. It had increased more and we were able to bring it lower.
All right, when's the open enrollment date on that?
Which one?
On the health insurance?
We are kicking off before the end of this month. The tentative dates are, we have August the 22nd, through the end of September 2nd, or August the 30th through September 9th, depending on how we get everything finalized.
All right, does that give us time? You said it's a commission decision. The commission's not gonna have time to weigh any options before the enrollment period's up. So how are we gonna do that?
So we have August the 30th, which allows us about a little less than 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, but we won't have a.
Yeah, when do you plan on showing us the information? So we can make a decision.
We have a commission meeting next week on Thursday, and that's it before September.
The information has been shared with county leadership, and we will present that to you again if you would prefer that we
but you did not give it to us. So that creates a problem. If you will give it to the county commission and allow them to have options in which to make a choice from, we'll make an educated choice and get back to you for implementation of that.
Well, I think she said she's giving it to you guys. You guys, well,
Yeah, I'll get it to you as soon as possible, that's my thought. I'll give it to Angela and show you what we have in the budget.
We're not just gonna rubber stamp stuff.
Okay.
On item number 7, where it talks about the Blue Cross Blue Shield increase, what I would recommend is considering a comprehensive discussion about that plan after first of the year for possible changes to the plan for cost control purposes. So we can theoretically decrease this 9% increase in future years. So it would be just a subject matter workshop just on that item alone. And the other thing I wanted to point out on the long-term disability and long-term disability, there's a possibility of bundling that with some additional services, which the HR staff is looking at to put together that RFP for implementation and consideration for lowering those overall costs for next year. And that bundle would include some additional services provided, like FMLA or ADA administrative services. And that'd be a part of a total package provided by one provider. So the task is to have those put together so our overall costs for those programs go down for next year.
It's going to put the onus on your back to give us the best rates along with the best service, because in the inflationary spiral we're in, we understand that the costs are going up. But this commission has to look after its employees too, and we don't want this to cost them their benefits that they receive. Okay?
Understood. I think there are a number of, from a discussion we had on Friday, there are a number of things that can be put in for cost controls that the employees will not pay for. It's behind the scenes administration things, some additional cost controls for prescription drugs, etc. So any impact to the employees from a recommendation standpoint, increasing their copay would be the last resort. So we would want to put these places in first. And in addition, there would be estimates as to what those cost savings would be attributed to each element that would be created for your consideration.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Appreciate the overhaul of everything. All right, do I have a motion on 1 through 8? So moved. Second motion, the second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Personnel board, we've got a couple of items. I'm going to move them there. These are not on the motion. Have a motion. Second.
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Probate court, don't know if anybody's on the Ferry line contract. I don't know what that is or what they do. Present amount of $150,000. Is anybody on from probate?
Anyone on for finance that would know what it is?
Nope. All right, I'll ask that we move it to the agenda and I'll get some clarification on what that is. Do I have a motion? Motion. All in favor, please say aye. Tax assessor, we got a couple of items. Motion. Second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And community grants. I have 2 grants, 1 and 2, motion in a second, all in favor, please say aye. Had an item on for discussion of World Games, since we got this other presentation, we'll move that to the next week. In the report.
Good, thank you. Now, you'll be the Fitch and Associates. This is a long awaited report from our ambulance crisis. We have Todd Sheridan coming in with Fitch, and Bruce and Kevin who are working with them. Look forward to hearing from them. We have many interested parties in the audience that I see. Let's listen to the presentation, see what we got, and then we will allow questions and answers after that, since this is a joint effort from our fire districts, from our municipalities and our county government. Leave the thought, huh?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Just waiting for everything to pop up on the screen.
I want to, before he starts, these gentlemen met with each commissioner individually yesterday and gave them, along with county management, a more detailed briefing than what we were given out. And they will be available after this meeting for any questions and answers that any of the individuals here should have concerning that. I'm going to stress that we need to cooperate, we need to have input, and we all need to work together to try to solve this problem because lives are at stake. Okay? A lot of these are quality of life issues. This is more important than that. This is something that we need to do, and it's our responsibility as a commission and our first responder. Make sure we work together to get something done.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, first off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Todd Sheridan. I'm one of the senior associates with Fitch & Associates. I recognize a lot of faces in this room. I know we went around and spoke with many of folks during this. Second, Commissioner, I want to thank you all for allowing us in commissioning this study and allowing us to work within your community. I know public safety is really, a critical part, a critical infrastructure piece for your community, and for that, we thank you for allowing us to be a part of it. With me today is Dr. Bruce Bruce Muller. I'm not always thinking Knight. Dr. Bruce Muller. He's a former fire chief and former county manager and public safety director. And we have recently promoted deputy chief of the Orlando Fire Department, Kevin Preston, with us today. Is going to be helping answer questions. So overall, I just want to give a little bit of overview. We were commissioned as Fitch & Associates back in 2020 and 2021 to review overall Jefferson County's EMS system. For that, in our review, the city of Birmingham was not commissioned as part of the study. Okay, they did not come in and were a part of it from the original side, even though we tried multiple times to bring them into the study. Jay Fish, who started the actual study, he retired. And so when he retired, I took on leading the project for the firm. Now, what we're going to go over today, what we want to stress is this did not happen overnight. This is kind of an organic process that happened years over years. However, it's critical that the commission, that the county, that the leaders in this room work together to solve the overall EMS problem here in the community. A little bit about our methodology. Fitch & Associates came in and we not only met with the leaders originally, came on site, met with folks, then we were asked and provided a 150 question survey. And this 150 question data report, was to ask for a lot of data within the 911 centers and the agencies within the community. Those, I will say, the data request was limited at best in response. One of the biggest challenge points that we had was the data collection from the 911 communication centers. We're going to talk more about that, but you have 14 different 911 communication centers, all of them holding their own data. And the challenge point is from a commission perspective, you have very limited oversight, governance, and or ability to see what's going on in your system to make a strategic plan. Some of our critical findings, and we're going to talk a lot about these here in a bit, but as of today at the county level, really there is no EMS system in place today. And what I mean by that is you have a very fragmented system, you have multiple agencies, and we'll talk more about the types of agencies you have in a bit, trying to bring together somewhat of an EMS program, but you don't have a system in place. The challenge point today, and speaking with a lot of the community members, is you will have a delay or no ambulance response in certain areas of your community. When we say a delay,
we talk about the fire service and speaking with some of the individuals from the fire departments. Fire departments will go on scene and wait 30 minutes before they start treating a patient because they never know if they have to guide them to their own personal vehicle to move them to the hospital. You may not get a response for hours or at all. We'll talk more about how that's a challenge. You have a chaotic 911 system, meaning your 911 call taking, you have 14 different communication centers. We'll explain why that's chaotic, but your challenge point is today, there's no consistency. Callers are having to bounce at times between 3 and 4 different communication centers to get to the right one. If you're standing in the same center, and you have 2 different carriers, you may go to various centers, so there's nothing coordinated about the 911 communication centers in the county. Overall, EMS is not recognized as an essential public service system.
Todd, did I hear you say that a unit would respond and not give care for 30 minutes?
So give me 1 second, so I'm not sure if you're over. Yep, we're back.
That's what I thought I heard.
Okay. And really, EMS is not recognized as essential public safety within the community. So at the state level, it was recognized for a funding part that EMS is an essential service, however, not dedicated such as fire and police in the communities. Furthermore, Jefferson County as a county does not have specific oversight both from personnel, governance, or authority as it relates to service within each one of the municipalities in the community. Last but not least, at the county level, there is no single entity that is accountable for the coordination of public service within Jefferson County. Other systems within Jefferson County that are much smaller than yours, surprisingly enough, being that you are the largest and most populous county within the state, have public safety departments or public safety directors in place that help do the coordination at the county level. However, Jefferson County does not have that today. May I get the next slide, please? So we're going to start with the end and work backwards into this. So the options that we're talking about within our study is for 2 parts. The first one is that Jefferson County needs to consider and urgently create a formation of a public safety department to create the coordination and bringing all the fire departments, communication centers, and EMS within the county together. Outside of what will be the 4 options, we also state that that 911 center, the system needs to be fixed. You cannot have 14 different programs within your community to help you make strategic planning. It's not best for life safety or the community. We provided 4 options. Out of the 4 options, we have what we call option 0, which is status quo, which in our belief as a firm, status quo is no longer an option. You really have people not getting the public safety and public service that's needed for the citizens here in a timely manner. Option 1 is the purchasing of ambulance coverage in what we're deeming as the non-dedicated serviced areas. We'll talk more about that in a minute, and of course implementing the public safety department. Option 2, with the formation of the public safety department and creating funding for the community, helps centralize purchasing. There are certain items that everybody, to include the fire service, EMS agencies, utilize throughout the county, such as medical director, their patient care reporting, vehicles that can be standardized and help purchase across the community that can help create sustainability. And number 3, there's always the option of a single provider system, but that would be a long-term strategic situation. Next slide, please. So over the next couple slides, we're going to break this down into really the 3 main focused areas, and that is really the dispatch center, the EMS system, and county oversight. From a dispatch center, as we've mentioned a couple times, you have 14 different PSAPs, or what we consider communication centers within the community. Not only that, you have different funding models that come in from the state, and then somebody may contract for dispatch services to, let's say, Shelby County or Blount County, and not even use your own 911 center. That redundancy within your system is extremely costly. I know people talk about outsourcing, but you're not even bringing it in-sourced. Everybody has a different set of software. Everybody has their own programs. That elevates the overall cost within the community. Furthermore, not having all the costs coming into a singular location to be able to ensure somebody gets help, to ensure the data is collected, to understand what the actual response times, that needs to be tackled. We do not believe that you need to go down to one 911 communication center. Our recommendation in an area this big is to make sure that you do have redundancy. What I mean by redundancy is you can take options. You have Hoover, who has a very sophisticated center. You have downtown Birmingham, or city of Birmingham, excuse me, and you have here in Jefferson 911. So at a minimum, you could come down to 3 if you needed to and operate that, create that efficiency. There's some ways to structure that if it's through software, if it's really the county owning the software, and if you keep the 14 PSAPs providing that software out to the other communities so that all data is collected in an organized fashion. As most members in this room know, NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency, they have specific standards as it relates to fire service. They also, 1221 is the oversight standard for the communication center. And right now, as a community, we do not meet the NFPA standards for communication center. Next slide, please. From an EMS system, this is where the fragmentation occurs. Not only have we talked about the 14 different PSAPs, but you have 4 different for-profit EMS providers within the community. You have 2 adjacent counties that respond within the community, and you have 12 fire departments, excluding Birmingham, that are responding for EMS. And again, no specific county oversight as it relates to coordination. Some of your challenge points when we start putting this together is you wonder how we got here. Well, part of this is some of these areas within your community that we consider as non-dedicated service don't have contracts with the private providers. So there's not only no dedicated funding, there's no dedicated performance standard, and there's no expectation of needing to staff. If you have a contracted provider, or a couple of them, that are coming in to assist, that are trying to staff every day, are trying to do what's good for the community, but there's nothing dedicated, coordinated, or expected on paper for that level of service. From that, the private agencies are trying to survive what we consider as on their own merits. They have to be able to live with the bottom line, so they're doing inter-facility transports out of hospitals while they're trying to load balance that with 911 to ensure that they can maintain staffing and profitability. A couple of the pieces that we found quite interesting, and when I say quite interesting, we were here for just one day, or I will say, well, 1 week, I will say. During that time when our two teams went around, met with pretty much every fire department, communication centers, we went and had a robust time here within the community. We had a mayor articulate to us about a child dying, not receiving an ambulance, about not all agencies within the area operating to their EMS licensure, meaning that the EMS licensure ensures that people are doing mutual aid. We witnessed one ambulance service saying we're only staying within our community when there was a call 5 minutes away for an unconscious person, and they did not respond. We saw where the canceling an ambulance at dispatch. Somebody had been waiting about 2 hours, and somebody got canceled on their response. And then we were talking to the fire service within the community, and we did find that patients, and I think this goes to Commissioner Knight's question earlier, was about they will sit back and withhold treatment for about 30 minutes to see if somebody's coming, and or if they're going to have to find an alternative way for folks getting to the hospital, because they said, you know, we can't hang IV bags, put them in a car and tell them drive themselves, or us drive them in a personal vehicle, because it's going to be hours long response. That to be said,
I have a hard time believing
that to be said, any other system, one of these would be considered a sentinel event. Here, this was just a week in which was articulated to us and we were talking about. Next slide, please. So from a county perspective, as we talked about earlier, the county needs to look at and help create the critical and fundamental infrastructure for the oversight and coordination
of the EMS program for the county. Right now, smaller counties, as mentioned, have a dedicated department to help with that strategic oversight, to help with the coordination of all these folks. We're not saying that you need to eliminate folks, but we need to have, at the county level, a coordination, a general understanding of what the response is to the community, and from that response to the community, develop strategic plans for the county to assist with sustainability for EMS within Jefferson County. Next slide, please. So what we're going to suggest as a firm, as one of the immediate actions, is for the county to take and declare public health and safety emergency for the provision of purchasing of unit hours to ensure that the areas that don't have dedicated service have a minimum baseline level of EMS response. The reason why we say this is right now you have a couple fire departments that are actively responding across county. There's one in here in the room actually here today that helped with a 4-hour response for somebody that was having a critical incident the other day and went all the way across the county to assist. On top of that, you also have another fire department in the area that is shutting down fire service to staff up mutual aid ambulances or 3rd and 4th ambulances during the day to do response. In this response planning for this ambulance service, the goal for this is not only do they help cover and create the baseline for the community, but outside the baseline for the community, they will go anywhere mutual aid if needed for backup and timely service. So this is just to create something that can support creating baseline for EMS across Jefferson County. Next slide, please. How we derived in putting together the costing structure for this and the overall response. What we looked at was the areas that do not have dedicated or contracted EMS service. Now, from the dedicated and contracted ambulance service, we have areas that have handshake agreements. The only one that we found that had a true contract was Bessemer with Shoals, and you'll see Shoals with and without Shoals modeling throughout our presentation. One of the interesting points that we found was the amount of volume that you have within your system. Now, when I say the amount of volume, we have to be cognizant that we received data in a very fragmented way from multiple sources. So we plotted those on a map to ensure we had decent coverage. We suspect we have about 90% of the overall volume captured, and in these non-dedicated areas for ambulance service, we believe with no Shoals or no Bessemer, there's about 42,000 responses. And in the Shoals, if you were to include Bessemer, there's about 38,000 responses annually. You're talking about a significant number of overall emergencies happening within these areas of service. Next slide, please.
Are you counting just emergencies or all calls?
Anything that comes in as 911, sir.
So it could be, hey, I have a doctor's appointment, and then that's somebody that calls, and
if somebody calls 911.
There's no breakdown on what's critical care versus.
It's not your data is not collected in a coordinated fashion across all communication centers to derive any of that information.
But it can be determined by the area that they're going into. I know when they come into my district, it's an emergency. Gunshots, fire, heart attacks, and stuff like that. I can tell you that ain't nobody calling over there. They go to no doctor.
Understood. And so what we did was anything that came in and was deemed a 911 call, we considered needing a 911 resource within our study. We didn't try to make any determination of if these were critical or not. It was if somebody dialed 911, they needed a resource for any reason whatsoever. They deemed it as a 911 as a personal citizen in the community. We deemed it as they needed an organized response. So from this slide, what we wanted to look at was what was the baseline level of geographic coverage. From a baseline geographic coverage, this tells us that overall with a 10-minute response to urbanized areas and 20-minute response to urban, or 10-minute to urban, 30-minute response to rural areas, how many dedicated resources just to cover geography. If you have over 1,100 square miles within your area, having this level of response is critical to at least have something that you're trying to work towards. From that, we then took two other variables within demand, the demand by hour, day a week, and we also looked at how long a response would be. From that, we derived the overall costing for the system. Next slide, please. From the overall costing for the system, what we gleaned out is that we believe that at a minimum, without Bessemer and Shoals, that it would cost the county about $1.8 to $3.4 million a year to ensure that dedicated level of service, just for the sole purpose of purchasing unit hours. Reason why we say the dedicated and our dedicated units and overall cost, the volume and the level of, because you have a large geographic coverage, there is not enough volume and enough revenue within the system to support this without having some type of subsidy. In the communities, we talk about fire departments, we talk about police service. These are dedicated and essential services within the community that are also responding to EMS. The fire service years ago, in their vision statement for fire unions and fire administration, put common healthcare as part of their vision statement. And part of that is the overall, that type of level of subsidy to make sure there's an organized response. The last piece I will say is over the last 5 years, the expenses for EMS has outpaced the actual revenues that have been provided from CMS and Medicare by over a third. And EMS is already living on single-digit profits if you're running an efficient system. And from that, this is dwindling fast, which is ultimately coming back on the municipalities across all communities. Next slide, please. So as we put together our program and what we're recommending, we're putting together 5 funding phases that are strictly related to ARPA funding. As we talk about strictly relating to ARPA funding is considered one-time money to help with strategic planning and infrastructure for a community. Because ARPA funding is for that, we've also been working with the county's ARPA folks, and in our phase 1, we talk about contracting with an external EMS agency, or putting out a provision for a request for proposal to purchase the number of unit hours needed to cover that at a baseline level of performance. In speaking to the ARPA funding folks, they say that phase 1 could potentially be utilized to cover the first couple of years of this. We also talked about in phase 2, purchasing both ambulances and fire first response resources within the community. Some of the resources here that have been ran pretty hard that the fire services are using to help supplement and run across in various areas that do not have dedicated service, and for that helping them as their finances are dwindling as well, trying to support the overall county. We need them in overall response, and for that, ensuring that there's a level of funding and or equipment to help support that overall community service. Phase 3 is bringing the education. We've all talked about critical staffing. We talked about the scarcity of resources. But the scarcity of resources relates to personal staffing is to fund overall EMT and paramedic programs to help quickly bolster a feeder system of personnel into the community. Last but not least is what we put as phase 4, and this is one we put in as an overall option. We understand there's got to be a lot of strategic planning around this, but if there was consolidation of the Jefferson County 911 system, there's of course a significant cost value associated with that. We deemed in the phase 4 of this program what the cost is that would be estimated relating to the provision of EMS services for the community and the build out of a 911 center for just that portion. Next slide, please. So going back to what we talked about originally as options. So we talked about the options. Options here we really feel is not an option. But options one, the purchasing of ambulance coverages and creating that baseline level of service is a critical need for the community. We believe that should happen sooner rather than later. And as an organization, utilizing the ARPA funding to supplement until some type of tax base or funding can be secured, we believe that that would give the commission time to help develop what's needed to create that sustainable system. We also talk about putting together a public safety department that helps the coordination of efforts from all agencies. The other one is option 2. It's an extension of option 1, so everything within option 1 would roll over into option 2. Option 2 adds on centralizing purchasing for the system. This could be a centralized medical director that helps coordinate the medical direction and quality for the overall system. This would be for potential vehicle purchases or patient care reporting to help across all service lines. Last but not least is option 3, which would take a lot of options and not something that we believe that the county would be specifically poised to today, but a single provider system, the overall, for the overall community. Next slide, please. Our overall conclusion today is this report today is really a call to action. As we feel as Fitch, today there is no system in place for EMS. And it's not working well for the people in specific communities. The reason for that is you have 15 dispatch centers. You have 45 fire departments, with 12 of those doing EMS service. 4 contracted EMS providers, and really no coordination at the county level to try to ensure the baseline level of performance, plus any ability to create strategic planning. The answers we have outlined are really in these 4 alternative models. Again, one we feel is not an option, and the other 3 need to be addressed as soon as possible. However, addressing those are going to take some time, really some strategic planning. This is, again, not something that happened overnight. This has been an organic thing that's happened years over years. As you had private agencies, you had fire departments, you've really had everybody trying to do what they felt was best for the community without a centralized coordination at the county level. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned, this really grew organically with no strategic plan or coordination. This report shows these serious issues. What we're asking for at this point is, and from these options, we want to provide you options as a commission to work through. We know that there are tough options. You know, it's really that call to action. But we're asking the commission to take a moment to let this resonate and help develop a strategic planning that will address this crisis in EMS in Jefferson County. We've given these options, we recognize that you'll need time. However, time, we would ask, maybe a quick response and review of the overall options to help support the community. But we feel, as Fitch, that the commission could express a preference for an option that would allow the county administration to look at the options at your request, allow the county administration to review, investigate further, and help develop steps for improving the overall provisions of EMS in your community. Next slide. And with that, we'll take any questions.
To implement what you recommended fully, what's your overall cost?
So fully overall cost is, if you're talking about public safety department and EMS provision.
And ambulances and whatever else you got.
Correct. You're close to about $10 million. However, breaking down that into its parts is about $500,000 as it relates to the public safety department if you implement it in its entirety, and or for the EMS and with utilizing ARPA funding initially could range again between $1.8 and $3 million for the baseline level of EMS service.
$10 million a year?
No, sir. No, sir. You have a lot of one-time funding in that.
I think that's a low number. I think that's completely a low number. I think you're talking about 5 times that. Knowing, and I dealt a lot with 911. The consolidation alone is a massive undertaking. And I mean, technology alone. I mean, if you're not considering technology just people, I mean that's huge. Even though, and it's a shame Birmingham wasn't a part of it, but I know that between Birmingham and Jefferson County 911, they're actually doing that virtual consolidation now, which helps. But your point of 14 PSAS is it resounds. We've got to do better. Out of Rocky Ridge, out of our district, there's one spot where it's Birmingham County, Mountain Brook, and Homewood. And one spot you're going to get. Who knows who you're going to get?
The 4 of them come. Be like the records.
Or nobody shows up and says, "Oh no, it's you." It's you.
The difference that you got, you're going to get somebody. there's people out in the western end of the county that not gonna get anything.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
You know, you got options, and John will speak to that. I know that y'all know, is that there's some areas of the county that, A, the providers refuse to go to. And B, they don't have a unit and personnel available to get to it.
And it's a long haul
And it's
from
a
there
long way.
to some place that, you know.
You have something on 269 out toward the river. Automobile wreck, serious automobile wreck where you need help right now. You're having either a fire district or a volunteer fire department respond to it and do what they can. But to get an EMS and transport there, we've seen 4-hour wait time, John. 4.5 hour wait time. We had one guy that shot himself accidentally with a shotgun. They had to load him in the back of a pickup truck and get him in.
And light, we had no longer have light around, correct?
Oh, we do have one exception.
They do have one, but it was probably not available for rainstorming.
Okay. But just in general, we still have a light flight.
We do.
Can I speak?
Sure.
You know, on the behalf, I'm the president of Jefferson County Association of Fire Departments and also the chairman for 911. And also, you know, I'm the fire chief of Rocky Ridge Fire Department, and I can speak for most of these fire departments in here, is that we're way under staffed to be able to send trucks out into the county and to help the county without some type of assistance. And the problem that we ran into, you know, is, and we were trying to help. We have sent probably a couple hundred times at least. We've sent trucks to Brighton, Lipscomb, Fairfield, Fultondale, Forestdale. We've sent them to Centerpoint. We've sent them to everywhere in the entire probably area of the county. Birmingport, down to the river. We've already been all the way to the river. So at one time or another, we have sent trucks probably throughout this whole entire county. And in 1 year, we probably ran over 200 calls outside of Rocky Ridge's fire district. And we were doing that to help because there was nobody else to help. And there was nobody else that was available to help. So we were doing it, trying to do the best thing for the people that we could do. Well, you know, these trucks are costing, loaded probably between $300,000 to $375,000 with all the equipment on there. And then we spent probably this year over $100,000 on maintenance for 4 rescue trucks that we were running all over the county. And so, you know, just maintenance itself and the fuel that we spend, I would not touch it for $150 an hour. I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm texting Ty and I'm saying, would you run it for $150 an hour? You know, for us to run the county, I wouldn't even consider it for $150 an hour because we would lose terribly. You know, and then the collection rate on top of that, some areas is, if you're in North Shelby's fire district, some areas might be 75%. If you're in Rocky Ridge, it may be 45%. So we have a lot of Section 8 areas that we cover, and we're proud to help them. We're proud to help everybody. And that's the reason that we run to all of these areas out in the county, because we want to help. But, you know, financially, we just can't continue to do it. And we're at a point now where we're even having to turn down the calls. We've never been on a call and said that we can't treat the patient and we're not going to do anything. Now, there may be a volunteer fire department out there in the county that has done that, but they probably aren't doing ALS calls anyway. So, you know, they're probably just going there, and if the guy's breathing, then they're good. If they're not breathing, then they'll put them on some oxygen or do CPR, put them on one of the Lucas devices that the county has purchased. But, you know, this is a time for us to do something, and this is an urgent time. I mean, we're talking about areas that are waiting 2 or 3 hours every day for an ambulance. And Commissioner, it's in your district out there at the river. You know, they're waiting. If there's not a private ambulance available immediately, then you're not going to get one for 2 hours, at least 2 hours. So, you know, it's all over the county. It's the entire area. If Rocky Ridge wasn't transporting, the only reason we got in the business was because the private ambulance company couldn't do it. They were giving us 45-minute ETAs, and we're like, hey, this can't happen. We've got to get in the business and do the job for them. And that's the only reason that we're in it. It's not to make money, because I can promise you, if you're in the ambulance business, you're not making money. You know, you're not even supplementing yourself.
But John, what's the average transport with revenue? If you're billing Blue Cross?
$78 to $470. It depends. If they've got good insurance, you could probably collect $475 on them.
What's the Medicare rate?
John, can I jump in on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So we received the revenues for transport from two different agencies. I believe the agencies, one of them covers a lot of the western area community. We looked at all that. The average collection for transport in those areas is $348.15. Okay, so when you start looking at now, that's not enough. So when you think about, let's go with what we looked at. We looked at a range, and our high was 165, creating a $3.4 million in subsidy annually. That we said, with just that alone, you're talking about a dedicated or just a baseline level of service, not trying to make profit, and that's allowing for there to be some readiness built into the system. Part of the fire department, and I'll piggyback off John for a second, is the fire department's a readiness model. Currently, a lot of private providers, they're an efficiency model because they're living on such thin margins. So they're trying to meet that staffing demand. The fire department's a level of readiness for the community for those what-if situations like 911. What we're looking towards here and what we built was a readiness model that would be part of the community that is built to ensure that the overall, areas of non-dedicated service will have that provision and will be able to operate in accordance with the system.
So what if you don't have insurance, which I know you run into a lot, and you have to transport them on gunshots or heart attack?
That's correct. So that's within that number of 348. There's some people that do not pay, and there's some people that don't have good insurance, the same Medicaid, who doesn't have, and then there's a bill right now that just passed to improve that here in Alabama. However, it's extremely low in Medicare and Medicaid payments. Medicare is not keeping up with the cost per call. And with that being said, the third-party insurance, which is typically between about 17 and 20% of the overall revenue sources within some communities, from that, they are pretty much bolstering everything else. And if you're in an area that doesn't have good third-party payers, such as Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthems, Cignas, you don't have that in your provision. And a good populace of that is not bolstering up enough revenues not to generate for the community to have a subsidy for the provision of EMS.
So your mean average is $348, what you said a while ago, that's your mean. So you got some that's more and some that's.
Well, the average city, so like over the mountain, $600?
No, nobody collects $600 on an average. No, $475 is probably around the average.
I remember
for good
council, we upped it.
Yeah, like Rocky Ridge is probably $325 to $375 at the most.
So we need to find out exactly, exactly what the county can do with the state. That's our goal, because we know we can't fund it alone, and we know we already have determined that it's too many 911. So we already know that.
And we don't control that.
Right.
I don't know how you convince those that are not in our system. I mean,
Mayor's Association tried, when I was on that committee, where a lot of them didn't want to give it up, and it was because it was also their jailer, was also their call taker, or their dispatcher, which.
Can we go to the state?
Well, I think the state's already aware of it, because this is not just the ambulance issue isn't a Jefferson County issue, it's a statewide issue.
Right.
it's a nationwide issue.
Right.
In order to solve this, we're going to have a buy-in from our departments. I spoke about this yesterday. Our volunteer departments, our municipalities, and our districts. Okay? Everyone is going to have to work together. We're going to have to coordinate, and we're going to have to expand that out to include others in the medical profession. Okay? This is a public health crisis. People are dying on the side of the road because they cannot get an ambulance. And that's something that we as a commission need to address. Now, we don't have the tools in which to designate and dedicate certain resources. But we do have the communication to get everyone's feet under the same table to try to find a solution. And I'm not saying that any of these solutions are going